Hello and welcome back, friends. In the last video, we, basically went over and did a short introduction to DOM. And we talked about why you should care, so hopefully now you care. If you don't, we'll see more. I also showed you a few different websites that use it. Some games and animations use it as well. But we still haven't really talked about what the DOM actually is, so that's going to happen in this video. We're going to learn what DOM is, so we'll define it. DOM stands for Document Object Model. All right, Document Object Model. So the meaning of these three words is going to make a little more sense in this lesson. But let's start by defining it at a higher level. The DOM is the interface between your JavaScript and your HTML and CSS. So it's basically a bunch of special JavaScript objects, JavaScript methods, and functions that we can use to interact with our HTML and CSS. We can change things, we can add elements, remove elements, change colors, animate things, all sorts of exciting ways in order to interact with HTML and CSS, just like we saw in the last video. And this is very similar to the objects that we created. You see how it's all working. So now in here, we're going to talk a little bit about how the DOM is constructed and why it's called the Document Object Model. So when we load up an HTML, something like this, we have a body tag, and inside of it, there is an H1 tag and a tag. So we create this HTML, and then we load it up into the browser. So when I open this up in the browser, I'll see this, but behind the scenes, the DOM is created, right? So it's constructed from this HTML right here. And what I mean by that is that this HTML is turned into a bunch of JavaScript objects. So the browser takes every HTML tag and turns it into a JavaScript object. That's where we get the object model part of Document Object Model. So again, just to understand a little bit better, when we load up HTML in the browser displays things to us like this. But behind the scenes, it's actually making this model of every single element with a JavaScript object, just like we did in our previous lessons with the John object and all the other objects. But if we look into our HTML code, in our code editor here, we'll see an H tag and an A tag, and when we open this file in the browser, these tags turn into a JavaScript object. Imagine doing each one of those by hand. All right, so then we can manipulate these objects. So these objects are fundamentally the same thing as the objects that we created earlier, except the content is different. They're going to have things like font size, text, and color, style, all different properties that are all contained inside of each object. Now, we're definitely going to be spending a lot of time working with these objects, so the specifics aren't really important. But all we need to know here is that when we load up HTML, it is displayed in the browser, and the browser takes that HTML and takes each element, turns it into an object. So that covers the object model part, you say. But what about the document? All right. Every object that the browser returns from HTML tags are stored in the document object. So you can see here, this is a little diagram of the type of structure that we get from the DOM. But check this out. The top level object that everything is contained inside of, our entire model of HTML. This is called the document. So we're going to be using this document object to access those objects returned from HTML tags by the browser. So for instance, we'll go to Facebook once more. And here I'll open up console and I'll clear it. And here I'll just write document. And let's see what we get back. Okay, so when I do that, I get a document that comes back, and It's a big object. It doesn't look like a JavaScript object. It's not really what you would expect, It's because the browser is hiding it from us. So to get to that, we'll need to use cancel.dir, which is another method on the console object. And we're going to console.dir, and inside of it, document. So all this is going to do is show us the entire document object here. So you can see it's just a regular object like the ones we've written in our previous lessons. Only difference here is that there's lots of information, right? We see a URL, and it's a property here. There are other properties here like BG color, char set, and here there's a body property. So when I expand it, we see attributes, children, child nodes. And we're going to learn how to manipulate all these properties. There's hundreds and hundreds of different properties and methods in here. So it's one of those times that I mentioned from the beginning of this class, I think, where you're going to have to be comfortable not knowing everything. I can tell you right now that most developers don't know half of the properties in here. But console yourself, because I'd say that they work with about 10% at most. I mean, there's so much more stuff in here that we almost never need to use. So that shows you some of the potential. But then at times something comes up and we've got to try something that we've never done before. So you can maybe Google it, find out the solution. But in this course, I'm going to show you how to use the most used ones, and you can do some exploration on your own. Okay, sound good? So again, this is the body property, and within it, there are HTML tags, our div tags, A tags, and all the other HTML tags. So we're going to reach each of these tags from here and manipulate them, all right? So that is DOM in a nutshell. So we're going to pause right here, and we will continue in the next section. See you then.